First of all, to say it's always so special to be back because so many of you are just like family to me. We've known each other for umpteen years, and that's special. So thank you to Cherie and to the board for inviting me to be with you again. I want to say I haven't been this dressed up since I last saw you. You probably recognize the tie, but I've spoken and given classes in Carson City, and up there our dress are Levi's and workman's shirts. Whoa, pretty laid back. Anyway, I am so appreciative of what Cherie has done and is doing. Since I left, I follow all of her writings all the time, and I think to myself, you know, we really make a great combination, because I'm sort of the philosopher, the scientific researcher, and Cherie comes along and says, okay, now let's do something about it. And so she gives you so many different exercises to use, which, in light of what I'll be sharing today, are the nitty-gritty of what it's all about. We need both. We need someone to excite us in terms of the vision, but we also need someone to help us do the work. And so, bless you, Cherie, for the wonderful job you're doing. You know, I'm always glad to see somebody who has been such a special help to me through the years and to Dorothy, and that is Tom Thompson. Thomas, I'm so glad you're here today. You see, Tom and I are sort of attuned to each other because I was getting ready to do a series of classes on evolution up in Carson City. And in that process, we talk about the Garden of Eden. And out of the blue, Tom sent me a story which just fit perfectly with my work on evolution. So I want to begin by sharing that with you, and thank you personally, Tom. It was about a woman and a man who met each other in an unfortunate way. The woman ran a red light, and so she ran into this other car, and it was an awful collision. And somehow they both managed to survive, even though the cars were practically a total loss. And so they're sort of lying on the ground there, and the gal gets up and goes over and talks to the man, and she said, wow, we are so fortunate to be alive, the two of us. That must mean that we have some kind of a special relationship. We were meant to meet. And the man looks at her and he says, well, yeah, I think you must be right. And then pretty soon she staggers over to her car and she comes back and, look, another miracle. Here is a 100-year-old bottle of rum that I was carrying in my car. And I'm sure we were meant to share that as a token of this bond, of our coming together. And so she handed it to the man, and of course he's half out of it. He takes it, and he takes a big drink of it, and he hands it back to her, and she puts the top on it and puts it down. He says, aren't you going to take a drink? And she said, no, I think I'll wait for the police. Now, if you don't get that, I won't explain it. You talk to somebody who will explain it to you. You know, there's been some lovely advance words said about my being here, and I believe it's Suzanne, our publicist, who said that when Phil talks, you never know what you're going to get. It's like opening a box of chocolates, you know. Well, I want to tell you, you're going to know exactly what you're going to get, because the last time I was with you, I talked about placebos. You all remember that very well, I know. Placebos. And the important part they play in our world today. Well, today, I'm going to talk about the same thing. Only, it's not exactly placebos. I'm going to talk to you about nocebos. How many of you are familiar with nocebos? Oh, good. I've got to talk. The title is Nocebos. Okay. A placebo, of course, is a part of our lives. When somebody gives us a sugar pill and tells us this will take care of your hay fever, or this will take care of this, and you have a wonderful response from it, and you say, wow, that was a wonderful pill. And then you may or may not find out all you got was a sugar pill. And when we expanded that last time I talked to you, I made the point that it seems to clearly indicate that it's really what you think that's important in life. Indeed, that's the bottom line. You are what you think. And I told you last time that that's a very difficult word to hear. If you just generalize it, it's okay. But if you say, you are what you think. And everything we experience in life is a result of what we think. And I shared the importance of being willing to accept that, because it gives you a starting point for changing your whole life. It also gives you an understanding of who to blame when things aren't going exactly right in your life. It all comes back here. And that takes tremendous maturity. There's nothing childlike about Unity's teaching or metaphysics in general. It says you are what you think. Well, let's get to nocebos. The nocebo effect is called the evil twin to placebos that make you feel pain. Now, placebos fool you into feeling better. Nocebos, its evil twin, fool you into thinking you're worse and that you may feel pain. I'm going to read some of this to you from this article that I came across because it speaks of it so well. It says doctors even see a placebo response in patients who are told they're on a placebo. And I told you that last time. Even if they say, you know, you took a placebo, it was just sugar. I don't know, but it sure made me feel better. And again, unless you're a metaphysician, you don't know why it made you feel better, correct? It says, this means incredibly that you can get side effects from a sugar pill, and sometimes these side effects are so severe that patients drop out of clinical trials. As 2013 paper in Nature Review explains, a review of fibromyalgia drug trials revealed that 72% of the people who left the trial did so because they felt severe side effects while on a placebo. Now think of that, 72% people dropped out of this test because they felt such severe reaction to placebos. The most prescribed drug in America are statins. They work to lower blood cholesterol and help prevent heart attacks. But people commonly report muscle aches while on the drug. Sometimes the aches are painful enough that people stop taking the drugs, which then puts them at risk for heart disease. Recent evidence suggests that muscle aches might be a big nocebo. Nocebo are those side effects that people get when they shouldn't be getting them at all. There's been a lot of recent fascinating scientific work trying to find ways to maximize the placebo effect so that doctors can squeeze out the maximum therapeutic benefit for drugs. But scientists are also learning there are no ways to minimize or maximize the nocebo effect too. A fascinating recent study in Science shows one possible way. When patients are led to believe one drug is less expensive than another, they are also less likely to report painful side effects. Now just think of that, folks. If you are led to believe by your doctor or your minister that what you're about to take is a lot cheaper than this other medication, the odds are that you will not experience the side effects as much as if I told you that this is the most expensive stuff you can get. To prove that, and these are all tests that they have run, to prove that, they did a research where they gave people medicine in different packages. And one was in a package that was very beautiful blue and looked like it was really well done artistically and everything else. And then they gave them the tests to see if the placebo effect took place when they told them that this medication is apt to cause you to feel very hot. And so they then tested the folks with this medication, this very expensive package, and boy, did they get hot. The biggest percentage of them got this, oh, yeah, oh, that's really hurting there. It's so warm, hot. Then they had another group, and they gave them the package of the medication to spread. And, of course, the medication was nothing. It was just some salve. It had no medication in it at all. But the salve in the second package was in this box. The second package, the box, was really chintzy looking. The artistic work wasn't well, and was yellow and brown rather than blue and violet, you know. And so they found that the people responded to the nocebo effect less because they were sure it had to be, couldn't be as good as something that was in a regular, beautiful package. And let that just sink in. Because you could have been one of those tested. And it probably would be that most of us would fall within the normal response to these nocebos. And we would find ourselves, if we were influenced, as we probably would be, by that good-looking package, or by the cost of it, that it must really have powerful side effects, just like we might grant it healing effects. No, you don't have to put your hands up. Have any of you ever taken medication and you read all the side effects on it? You don't even have to read it on television. You know, they started telling you about this great thing they've got, and they said, and then we want you to know it could cause heart failure, it could cause this, it could cause that, you know. And so they tell you all that because they know that some people are going to get those side effects. Because they have to, by law, put them on the package, so they're going to read the package. So anyway, now you know about placebos, now you know about nocebos, and know that the scientists take it seriously enough that a lot of money is being spent on demonstrating this, and all the companies are very well of it too, in their packaging, their preparation, the words they say. But the real key is the individual who participates. And it is quite obvious from the testing that it's what the people think that causes the reactions. Either it has a positive placebo effect or it has a negative nocebo effect. So why do I bring us back to this again? Because I think the very bottom line of our work is to realize this simple truth. I am what I think. And it sort of ties in with the fact that I have been working with the folks over in Carson City on evolution again, and affirming for them that the greatest turning point in evolution is when we went from simple consciousness, which animal life represents, to the reflective consciousness, which all humans have. You're sitting there reflecting right now in a way that all life forms below you can't. And the point that Teilhard makes, and it's so important to realize, that when we became reflective, that is, evolution created a humanity that could be reflective, it wasn't that we suddenly became perfect reflectors. No, we just became, as Teilhard said, thought beings. We are thought beings. We are mind beings. And that's an incredible, incredible breakthrough for all of evolution. But the thought that I want to share today, and that has come to me so strongly as I've worked with this, is one of the reasons we get unhappy when we think, wait a minute, I am what I think. I mean, I didn't look like this when I was 18. How come I look like I am now? And he said, well, it's because you're a thought being. Now, this is hardline metaphysics. The assumption is, if you're really a thought being, you can be what you want to think. Which says, as Charles Fillmore was bold enough to say, the co-founder of Unity, he said, I am going to spiritualize my body and live in this body forever. Everybody could say, well, but logically, that's simply the truth. When evolution created a thought being, it created a being that is capable of being what it wants to be. Which reminds me of a story. Some of you I'm sure have heard this before. I love the little lady that came to me years ago in my first ministry in Seattle. I gave a talk on dying and how death was but a transition into another dimension. And this lady made an appointment to see me, and she was a darling lady. And I was about to say an older lady, but she was probably younger than me. In any event, she was just a dear and a very sophisticated-looking older lady. She came in and she said, I heard your talk on Sunday, and I wanted to share something with you I've never shared with anybody else. I said, please do. And she said, you know, when my husband died, our lawyers came to me and said they could not find his papers. And if they didn't find these papers, that I was going to be out of a significant amount of money and resources. And she said, so we looked all over through his office and all over the house that I could think of, and we couldn't find these papers. And she said, one night I was lying in bed and I was saying, oh, Henry, whatever his name was, Henry, how could you have done this to me? Why didn't you tell me? And she said, suddenly I was aware that I wasn't alone. And she said, I opened my eyes and there was Henry standing at the bottom of the bed. And this is the reason I've always remembered this story. She said, and what do you think is the first thing I said to him? If you remember the story, because I'm sure I've told it to you before, but I just love it. Because I thought, well, my mind said, well, she probably said, oh, Henry, I love you. I'm so glad to see you. She said, my first words were, Henry, how come you look like you look? She said, can you imagine? She said, I said, how come you look like you look? And his answer is priceless. He said, how else would you know me? Well, anyway, he told her where it was. They found it. It was a real experience. I know it's real. Some of you here, I've seen people in other dimensions myself. So anyway, Henry appeared, but the key word there was, you see, how else would you know? He said, it sounds like, I chose to look like you knew me. Realizing in the dimension that he was in, obviously, he had the capacity to be what he wanted to be, to look like he wanted to look. How could he do that? He could do that because he's a mind being. And in that dimension, he is able to apparently function in his capacity as a mind being. So, that brings us here to the nitty-gritty. What I am wanting us to know is that this dimension clearly is a dimension where we are supposed to claim it for ourselves. I don't understand why in moving to another dimension we apparently have access to that, But I have the feeling it's because that is granted as a part of the love that we're all embraced in by the Creator. But in this dimension, it is clear to me that it is all about the process of demonstrating to ourselves that I am a mind being. And that I know that I'm a mind being. When I was serving as vice president back at Unity School, one of our leading teachers and I had a written confrontation that they asked us to write articles because he was on one side of the fence and I was on the other. He was on the side of the fence. He says, "You have no right to tell people that you get what you think, because that's not kind. Because if you no longer look like you're 18, you got nobody to blame." We blame, of course, say, well, that's the way it always is. But who said it was always that way? You were born into a world where everybody believes that because they've been looking at it and seeing it. But is that the truth? What about the little man at the end of the bed who said, "How else would you know me?" So, what about those of us who have serious illnesses? Or, like me, I've had some serious challenges in my life along. Do I want to own them? If I want to get better, if I want to begin to, what I think, fulfill my purpose of being, I need to own them. Because if I own them, then it tells me that I can be about the business of guarding and leading my thinking as much as possible every moment of our life. So, are you feeling good about what I'm saying right now? Huh? Some of you are shaking your head and some are just closing your eyes tight.
Reflection.
You see, when I taught the class in evolution at Carson City, I said to them, there is nothing more important in your life to understand than evolution. That life is an evolving process, and to see the big picture, not the evolution just of your personal life, but to be able to see what I've already said to you, that from the beginning of this earth process, there has been an evolvement that has gone over billions of years. It was only something like 200,000 years ago that the creatures of earth became reflective. It's only been 200,000 years since there have been people walking around thinking up their lives, reflecting on their lives. In terms of evolution, that's short. That's really short. And I tell you that to say, should you feel bad about looking at your life and saying, I produced that, that's not so good? You need to realize that we're part of a long process. And that in terms of the creator and understanding the creative process, we have no reason to feel guilty about any of the negatives that take place in our lives. We don't need to feel negative that we don't look 18 years old anymore. I struggle with that, but in any event, seriously, we don't have to feel negative about that. We don't have to feel negative about the fact that we may have produced an illness of one form or another, or a limitation in our lives, because it is there only to lead us, as you bear witness to by being here in a unity work, to the realization, the most marvelous thing in the world. I am a mind being, and I'm in the process of evolving my life into something wonderful. Now, to wrap this up, I want to say, Teilhard, in his theory of evolution, said the next breakthrough in evolution, because there's been all these breakthroughs that have gone along, the next breakthrough is not going to happen one person at a time. It's going to be an all-together thing. And when I read about nocebos and placebos, I said, how can those scientists keep doing all those tests and not begin to become the leaders in telling us all, you are what you think. I mean, look what you do with your medications all the time. You are what you think. But the scientists aren't doing that. In general, there are some that do, but in general, science doesn't do that. Why don't they do that? Is it because they don't really see this? They sort of see it, but they know too many cases of people who have thought something and didn't get what they were thinking. And that's the thing that makes it a challenge for us individually, is that we can think of times we think we've really thought about something and we didn't get it. I won't go over too long, but I'm working on it here. It's appreciating the fact, as a Unity student, the longer I'm in Unity, the more I appreciate our concept of the 12 powers, as we call them, or the 12 freedoms. And that, you see, when you and I think, we actually think through a screen. It isn't just one-on-one. But when you think through all the faculties of your mind. And so, one of those faculties, that probably most of you know, is imagination. And so, when we talked about the nocebos, and we talked about the packaging, what do you think the screen of their mind, of their thinking, what part of the screen of mind did they go through? They went through their imagination. They looked at the image of the packages and said, ooh, that's an expensive one. That must be powerful. And so everything you think goes through the screen of all your faculties. And so as we go about the business of lifting up all of our faculties, and I know that Cherie talks about them from time to time, perhaps you've had classes on them, but as we go through life and our thinking goes through those screens, we need to lift our thinking. We need to lift the screen of our faculties so that our thinking goes through in a succinct and specific and focused manner. One last story, and I'll wind this up. Somebody I've always loved because of his courage and humility was my friend Jack Schwartz, who, again, many of you have studied with when he used to be a part of us. And Elmer Green, the founder of Biofeedback and the head of Menninger Research Foundation, had tested Jack and said, he tests more powerful than the Eastern yogis and all that we have taught. He has such power over his body. He could have blood coming out of a hole and pull the blood back in just by thinking about it. Wow! Are you a thought being? Jack was a thought being. And he was knowing it. However, Jack used to give lessons for us, and you perhaps could have been in one of them, when he'd say, don't smoke. When he was talking about how, don't smoke. He said, I do, but I can do it because I know it doesn't hurt me. And so we all think, well, he's powerful. Anybody can put blood in it. But you know what happened to Jack? He got lung cancer and died. And the reason I love him so is he said, because he knew he was a thought being, he said, it was pride. It was pride. What does pride do? It cuts us off for the most important faculty of your being, which is the love faculty, love for God. If you're filled with pride, you just canceled out your strongest connection, your love for God. So anyway, Why did I tell you that? No, I told you that only because I wanted to highlight the fact that Jack had the power to think what he wanted to happen. He felt no pain. You could run things right through his arteries, and he wouldn't let the blood come out the arteries. That's how powerful he knew as the thought being. But the sieve of the faculties wasn't all lined up yet, and so as he said, he canceled out his love faculty because of his pride. And he was wise enough to know that. Next time around, he won't do that. If you run into somebody putting wires through their arms and no blood coming out, it's Jack coming back the second time. And no pride. Well, I want to leave you with the thought. I hope that you do not respond negatively to having somebody say to you that you are wondrously made. You are a thought being, and every thought you hold has an impact on your life. And how they flow through the sieve of your faculties determines how your life will unfold. If it doesn't unfold the way you want it to, don't be discouraged. Don't be angry with yourself. Just know you're working on the process of what this life is all about. And know that, like Henry, you're never going to die. Let's close our eyes for just a moment. And let me just ask you to feel with me, or to work with this thought for just a moment. Can you ever remember not being? I suggest that there isn't one of us here that can say, yeah, I remember when I wasn't. No, you can't. Because you have always been. You're an idea in the mind of God. You will never die. In terms of ceasing to be, you will always be. And the reason that is so wonderful is because you are in the process of evolving into the Christ being that Jesus demonstrated for us. You are a wondrous mind being. Though blessed presence, we give thanks that we can entertain this truth and let it be put into action in our life so that we may not only appreciate the good life, but that we might be a light to lead others into the realization of the wonder of their lives and of their true being. Thank you, God. Amen.